We understand there was a pivotal moment when you went from flying high to being grounded. Can you share what happened in Alabama?
Yeah. So as I was early, Elena was a huge part of my career in bringing me into what I call the circle. I literally in Christmas, it was 8 years ago. We landed the airplane in Fairhope, Alabama, which is a super cool runway. It's like really, really small. We landed the G200 there. It's kind of a private airstrip. And I went to the hotel. And this is over Christmas. And Elena calls me. She's like, hey, look, you guys are a crew. Because the one thing about Grant and Elena is that they actually, the people who work with them and work for them, they're really like an extended family. And so, she's like, hey, do you want to come over for, Christmas dinner? It's at her parents' house. And I'm like, I looked at the other pilot and Rob and David, I you not, he said, I'm like, hey, they just invited us to come over for dinner. And the other pilot's like, no, I'll pass. I'm going to go down the street and, eat at this pub or whatever. And I'm like, really? Like you don't want to go and have dinner with the boss? And so I went over to the house and I noticed when I got there, Grant was a little bit aggravated. And I started asking him questions like, well, what's going on? And he's like, well, I have a property that's 10 minutes north of here. And when I went there, the pool was dirty. The blinds were down. It was closed. There was nobody there. And he's like, I pulled up a report and I had 40 units. I have 40 units that are not leased. And I was like, wow. I was like, that is like, I'm like, that's BS, number one. But I was like, two, how can I help you? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how do I help you? I want to lease those units. And he's like, you would do that? And I was like, yeah. I was like, heck yeah, tell me more about it. And so he started going on and telling me about the property and everything else. And I looked at him, I said, well, what if I parked the airplane in Miami when we landed in 3 days and I came back up here and I rented those 40 units for you? Would that be of service? Would that help you? And he's like, wow. He's like, you would do that. And I said, absolutely. I'm going to get a plane ticket right now and I'm going to come up here. And I have, guys, you got to keep in mind, like I've never ran a 344 unit complex before. I have 21 units and I took a huge risk. And I was like, you know what? I'm willing to do it because I knew I could lease. I knew I could call. I knew like if I just got in this building, I can lease 40 units in 40 days. So I told him, I'll lease 40 units in 40 days. Will you give me a shot? And he's like, come up here. Let's do it. And so that's the transition. That was my transition where Grant actually gave me a shot working in the real estate. And I was up there the next week.
Okay. So a couple of things. You kind of mentioned you were working with Elena was pivotal in this kind of relationship with you and Grant. Who is that for reference?
So Elena Cardone is Grant's wife.
Got it. Okay, cool. And so you're flying for them. You're, I guess you're doing phone sales a little bit at the beginning of it. And then he's like, I got to lease all these units. And you're like, I'm going to do it. He's like, wow, you would do this for me? You're like, great. And you go and you do it. How did you actually lease 40 units in how long?
So the task and the goal was 40 units in 40 days over New Year's and over Christmas holiday.
Okay. All right. So how the heck did you do that?
So here's the cool thing. So I went up there the next week and he's like, look, I want you to get an air mattress and I want you to live on site.
The high life right there.
Yeah. And I want you to stay in a 1-bedroom apartment. And I'm like, okay. I was just willing to do whatever it took. And so I flew up there, got an air mattress, got a 1-bedroom, put the air mattress up. And I was literally like the first day that I walked into the leasing office, I realized really quick that there was nobody leasing. There was no leadership. The manager was posting on Facebook. There was like 3 likes. I'm like, well, clearly that's not a lead gen. And so I called Grant. I said, what would Grant do? And he says, this is what I would do, Ryan. He's like, I'd go back in the last 90 days, pull out the list and print it off of all the people who came in and didn't rent. And I'm like, perfect, done. He's like, I'd call them, I'd paint a picture and I'd get them back in there and I would lease them a unit. He's like, I'd just start with that. And so without doing anything else, I pulled the list. I started calling people, cold calling them, right? Hey, you came to this apartment complex, 30 days ago, 45 days ago. Have you found a place yet? Nope, I haven't. Perfect. I found the perfect unit for you. We actually have a discount. We have a special right now. Come back in tomorrow. I've already picked out your unit. And so I started getting all these people coming in. I literally started getting all these people coming in. I said, what else would you do, Grant? He's like, well, I'd go put your phone number on the front sign of the building. On the street, I'd go and put your cell number. I'm like, perfect. I'll go get a sign made. And so I went and got a sign made, got some new balloons, got new flowers, started cold calling people like on the 90-day list. And I started going knocking on doors of all the businesses in the 5-mile radius. And within 15 days, I had 15 leases, each lease every single day. And by the 15th day, he called me back. He says, Ryan, get your ass back here. You are now part of the real estate team.
Man, dude, rock and roll. I honestly am really impressed because I feel like I would be already pessimistic about that advice of like, call everyone who has come in the last 45 days and see if they are interested. Because I would have assumed everyone found a place.
Right.
And that wasn't the case.
That's what we call follow-up.
As a side note, that is the number one biggest area where people need improvement in almost every business. I call it lead bleed in the real estate books I wrote, the top producer series. So much of the time it's lead bleeds what's hurting you. You write an offer on a house, they say no, you forget to go back and check a couple weeks later. You just assume someone else bought it. The thing's still sitting there. The sellers are singing a different tune. Right? Maybe someone else tried to put it in escrow and they accepted and then it fell out of escrow and they're heartbroken. And if you show up at that exact time, they'll take an offer for 75 grand less, but you're looking for the next deal that you can just write the offer on and try to get. We frequently give advice. You got to write a lot of offers, but we never remind people go back and write offers on houses that you were already rejected for. It's that same principle. And yeah, he's smart. He knows that.
That's crazy. That's good. So all right. So you get the 15 done, 15 days. What about the other 25 units? Was Grant no longer worried about that because you sort of figured out those systems for the rest of the team or what?
Yeah. So what happened was I identified who the real leadership was coming from in the community, which was the assistant manager. And so what happened was we promoted the assistant into the management role. And then also on the maintenance standpoint, because that's also a big thing in multifamily and apartments, right? Is you have to turn the units and make them ready because everybody, when you show an apartment, just like when you show a house, David, you know this better than anybody, you want to show the end result. You want to show the finished product. So I think, 20 days, I was there for about 15 to 20 days. And that was plenty of time to identify who the players were, give them enough momentum and energy. Because look, when a guy like myself or you or David go into somewhere like that's great energy and you could really start building that momentum. So we got that place leased. It was like 95% within 30 days. And then the proper team members were in there. So now I could start going and focusing on, because at the time I think you had 3,000 units to 300. So you had about 10 deals. I was able to go and start working on other deals because that's really where I started cutting my teeth in this business is I wanted to make sure that Grant's portfolio was running 10X. And so he started putting me on all these other deals saying, hey, you get in touch with this management company, you get in touch with this property manager, you go and just make sure that you're going through all these deals. And so, I leased 15 units. I came back here. There was a team of two. It was called Grant Cardone and Ryan Tseko. And, that's what we built off of. It's crazy.
I mean, what you just showed is not only were you willing to, roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, but you actually succeeded. That's the thing is anyone might be willing to go out there and try it, but you actually did it. Were you already a natural leader? Was this something that you were good at? Are you particularly a charismatic salesperson? Or was it sort of like a fake it till you make it type of thing?
I think I've always had the ability to learn. I think, back what David asked me earlier is, how did the leadership and the pilot skills transfer into what you're doing now? I was a captain for 9 years of a 70 passenger jet, $40 million airplane. Leadership is highly trained in the airlines. And I think that, from a piloting standpoint is I'm very systematic. I am very logical and I'm a people person. I think people are the most important part of the business. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's this and it's this, it's this. It's the people. If a deal's doing bad, it's the people. If a deal's doing good, it's the people. Because you could have a great deal and crappy people, the deal's not going to do great. You could have a okay deal and have great people, the deal's actually going to do really well. So I think that the people are super important. And I think that, for me, I've had a lot of great mentors where I'm just willing to do stuff that